We'll give it a second to make sure all the technology is working as usual because it's been particularly finicky lately. But we'll see if it's working today. Fingers crossed. Okay, it looks like we're good to go. Awesome. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm so excited to be back for the live Monday music motivations. These are always so much fun to sort of get on here and just talk about some things that I've been thinking about in my practicing, some things that I've been working on with my students, and hopefully some things that will motivate and inspire you to have a fantastic week of practice, because that's what we're here to do. If we can have great weeks of practice week in and week out, then we're going to get better. And who doesn't love getting better at the clarinet? So welcome to the Live Monday Music Motivation. This week I wanted to sort of talk about New Year's resolutions and talk about SMART goals and why I think SMART goals aren't that great for musicians and maybe in general. I have a few issues with SMART goals, and I think there's a way to simplify it that's better. I do like the acronym of SMART, and I do like a good acronym, so I will give it that. But let's talk about sort of your New Year's resolutions, your goals for this year, and how to make effective goals as a musician this year. So first up, most of us have very generic goals like, I want to sound like X, Y, or Z colleague. I want to play better in my community band. I want to sound better. Again, I want to play like Anthony McGill, Sabina Meyer, Martin Frost, Benny Goodman, Giora Feidman, like some great professional who maybe even inspired you to play clarinet in the first place. But all of those goals are very, very generic and ambiguous and not very helpful for becoming a great musician and great clarinetist. Now we could do something like a SMART goal, which I feel like a lot of us learned SMART goals in schools or in some business training at some point. And I think SMART goals in the realm of business or corporate maybe make sense, maybe. But if you're not familiar with SMART goals, what they are is an acronym. S stands for specific, M for measurable, A is attainable or achievable, R is realistic or relevant, and T is timely. The reason why I don't love SMART goals when it comes to clarinet playing and being a musician is it's hard to figure out exactly what each of those mean in relationship to a music goal. And I think it's also pretty redundant. Specific, measurable, and timely all feel kind of like variations of the same thing, and especially if you use the like attainable and realistic or achievable and realistic version, I think those are basically the same thing as well. Relevant maybe is a little bit more interesting. But if you try to make a SMART goal for clarinet playing, you start with something specific. And when it comes to something specific, I think there's like, I don't know, let's say I want to play this piece or like do a recital. Cool. That's specific. That's something I want to do. Measurable. How do I measure that? I did the recital or not, I guess. Achievable or attainable. Am I able to actually play a recital? Again, like if I'm planning to do a recital, I probably am capable of playing a recital. Maybe the timely part, like I'm going to do a recital next week. That's maybe not achievable or attainable, but a recital by the end of the year certainly is, even no matter what level you're at. It could be a recital of simple pieces. Realistic or relevant. Realistic, again, has the same problems as achievable and attainable. Relevant, maybe there's something there, like, would it be relevant for me to do a recital? And again, I think that's just a very simple, straightforward yes. And then timely, I think, is very useful. When should I actually do that recital? And I think the timely part is very significant for setting deadlines and actually making it happen. So many times we have these ideas of things we want to do, but we never set a deadline for it. So then like 2, 3, 5 years later, we're still thinking, man, that would be really cool to do a recital someday. And it just never actually gets done because you don't set the deadline for it. So I do love the timely part and the specific part of SMART goals. Everything else in the middle, and I don't like as much. So what I have for setting goals and what I encourage people to think about are not as cool of an acronym. The acronym is TAE, but it is a lot simpler. The other problem with SMART goals is there's 5 steps to remember there and 5 different things to be thinking about. You've maybe heard the great joke that like musicians can't count past 4, and I think it's very valid. Almost all of my frameworks are no more than 4 steps. We have the 4 opportunities for improvement, 3 I's of practice, 3-step warm-up, 3 C's of practice. I really like to keep things in sort of 3s, sometimes 4s, and I will admit the $1 million practice process is 5 steps, but hey, it's worth $1 million, so you gotta have extra value in there, right? But in general, I think SMART goals are just too complicated and can be simplified. The way that I simplify them and the way I think of goals are tangible, actionable, and easy. So TAE, tangible, actionable, and easy. So let's take that idea that I started with of like, I want to play the clarinet like X, Y, or Z person. That's not very tangible. It's also not very actionable. It's also not very easy. So let's try to make that more tangible, actionable, and easy. Tangible, maybe, like, you're not going to know if you're playing like that person or not, but maybe you can start learning a piece that they're really famous for or that you really love them playing. If you're a more advanced player and you want to sound like Martin Frost, maybe try learning klezmer dances. That's one of like Martin Frost's signature pieces that just sounds so cool and is so amazing and impressive. So that's something tangible that you can start to do is, I'm going to work on learning klezmer dances so I can play like Martin Frost. Maybe you want to be like Benny Goodman and play like Benny Goodman. Pick one of Benny Goodman's great, famous, popular pieces and try to play like Benny Goodman. And by learning that piece, you're going to start sounding like that player that you want to sound like because it's kind of their iconic piece and sort of what they're known for to some extent. So that makes it a lot more tangible. Also with the tangibility, I also really like to put some timeliness into that. So maybe say like, I will perform klezmer dances on my senior recital by this date or something like that. That could be a cool, much more tangible goal to that process and give it much more tangibility. Step 2 is actionable. To make that actionable, you're going to have to turn it into an action. You can't just set this goal and say, I want to do that, and then not take any action to make it happen. So the actionability part and the actionable part is what you're actually going to do to make it happen. And like 99% of the time for musicians, the actionable part is practice. But if we just say, I'm going to learn klezmer dances for my senior recital by practicing, that's not a very interesting or very engaging goal. So try to make it more actionable. Like every time I practice, I will work on this piece. And you can make it even more interesting and more effective by adding on the last step, which is easy. Again, saying every time I practice, I'm going to work on this piece, like isn't very specific and doesn't get us much progress or give us much motivation because it's like, okay, I got to learn this piece. And every time you get in the practice room, you're sort of like, okay, there's this mountain of a piece that seems impossibly difficult. What am I going to do with it? Try to make it easy. A perfect example for making it easy for this would be one measure. Every time I practice, I'm going to do one measure. That seems very, very much more achievable and attainable, to use the SMART goal terms. But by making it easy, where it's one measure or one little bit of the piece, then it's not something that you're going to feel overwhelmed with and something that's going to make you procrastinate because it feels like a daunting task. Instead, it's just a very simple, okay, I'm practicing, I got to learn one measure of that piece. Okay, I'm practicing, got to learn one measure of that piece. And the cool part about making it easy is if you think, well, if I only do one measure a day, how am I going to be able to finish it by the end of this year? Like at most, if I practiced every day, I could learn 365 measures, which is actually a pretty significant piece, honestly. However, by making it easy, you're lowering that barrier and you're lowering the resistance. When you have resistance to your motivation, that's when you feel like giving up, you feel like not doing it, and you're like, oh, I have to learn this whole piece. That's a ton of resistance, so I might as well just not do it. Instead, I only need to learn one measure, so I'll do it. You work on that one measure, you dig into it, and you're like, oh, it's only been like 8 minutes, and I feel pretty comfortable and confident with that measure. Maybe I'll do another one and another one. And your resistance to your motivation is one measure, which is very low resistance. However, you do a measure, then you do another measure, and you do another measure, and you start building up momentum. So you have low entry resistance, and you start building that momentum. And next thing you know, you've done an 8-measure phrase or 16 measures, or maybe you've even learned a whole section of the piece. And sure, there will be one measure bits here and there that might take like 30, 45 minutes for you to get that one measure down. But still, you're making progress and you don't have that overwhelm of like, oh, I can't do this, high resistance to entry. And that's, I think, the most important thing when it comes to motivation. And that's what these Monday Music Motivations are about, right? If you can lower the resistance to getting started, then you can start building momentum. And when you have momentum, that's when you make massive progress and can make great strides. So to sum that all up, tangible, actionable, easy are the things that you need to be thinking about. Tangible is something specific you're going to do, sort of by a specific deadline. Actionable is the action you're going to take to make that happen. Another great action that would be good for this goal that I was talking about is the action of actually scheduling your practice to make sure that you're actually practicing. You can have the easy part of, I'm going to practice one measure each time I practice, but if you never practice, then you're also not going to get anywhere. So another action step could be filling out your Monday Music Motivation practice template. Wait, hold on. If you can get your iPad to unlock. Filling out your Monday Music Motivation practice template so that you actually schedule it. And then the easy part is doing just the one measure of the piece. Don't let it become overwhelming. Don't have a high resistance to working on it. Just something really simple and easy like that. So I want you to put in your comments, what is your tangible, actionable, and easy goal for this year that you're going to tackle in your clarinet journey? And if one of your action steps is, as probably everybody should be, to plan your practice, then you can do that here. There's a link in the description, quickstartclarinet.com/get started if you want to download this exact template. You also can copy it for yourself. It's very simple, just the date for the week, the reflection of how things are going, your goals, and then your plan for what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. Then take that plan of when you're going to practice, put it into your calendar, your planner, your reminders, however you organize your time and schedule, commit to that time and make it happen, because when we practice regularly, that's when we make growth. So that's your mission. Comment your tangible, actionable, and easy clarinet goals. I will definitely look at all of the comments and maybe can give some feedback to make your goals even more effective, because it's my goal to make this your best year of clarinet playing yet. So happy New Year to everybody. I hope you have a great 2024. I hope you have some good ideas for how to plan your goals, and I look forward to seeing you next week on the next live Monday Music Motivation. Go fill out your template now and have a great week of practice.